What is going on? How are you folks doing out there? Hope you guys are doing well this evening as we get this show kicked off. What do we got over here? Nope. All right. I don't know what we got going on playing some wild music that did not want to play on there. Let me give this thing a second. What does this sound like? Nope. All right. This is completely terrible. We got to get that upgraded. Anyways, folks, hope you guys are doing well. I think this is our first rainstorm so far. First rainstorm of, what is this, 2025? Get my years right. A little bit of rain, a little thunderstorm. I'll take it all day. Though I would prefer to be in bed going to sleep not watching this, but listening to it. Anyways, folks, we're going to chop it up, talk through a lot of things today. If y'all are tuned into the show, it is going to be a laid back show because I don't have any material prepared or planned. I just recorded like 3 or 4 videos so we can talk about the things I've already discussed that you'll eventually get, or we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. But the primary subject of today's episode is really around your expectations for the Carolina Panthers heading into 2025. I think we are close enough to the point, minus the draft. Y'all are going to have to forgive me because it's still like coming up down with this cough and getting rid of. Minus the draft, minus some additional smaller pieces that are going to come through free agency, possibly. I think we're at a point where we can set or start to provide realistic expectations for the Carolina Panthers for next year. And I'm scared to do it. If we're being honest, I'm scared to do it. I know on paper or just by order of like, hey, next in line, that we really should be talking about playoffs. But I was sitting there today, as I always do when I think about content and things to talk about. I'm like, man, I don't know how comfortable I feel about saying the Carolina Panthers should be in the conversation for the playoffs next season. And it has nothing to do with offense, has nothing to do with Bryce Young, has nothing to do with Dave Canales. A lot of it has to do with the defensive side of the ball. I don't know if the defense is ready to take a big enough step. And I will actually go back and throw in the wide receiver position, which it just depends on what day of the week that you get me on how I feel about it, because there are days when we break it down and I analyze and I'm like, okay, maybe this team's going to be okay. But then you get tidbits of information and you start to listen. And it's funny, I know that Alex Bryant's thing is when people talk, listen. I do agree with that. And today we got confirmation from Dave Canales that the Panthers had a conversation about DK Metcalf. I don't think that's a surprise. Everyone could connect the dots. But that tells you, or should tell you, in my opinion, that the Panthers aren't content with the room that they have, and they feel they need to upgrade. Like, I understand the price wasn't right. I understand it didn't work out. But when you think about where the Panthers sit for them to continue to have those conversations, Kay Adams even threw up Tyreek Hill. Like, there's just not a lot available. I think Canales has to understand it. Like, you can't sit back and look at the yak that Bryce Young was given these last 2 years, which was next to nothing at the bottom of the league, and expect him to continue to produce. I've tried the mold of comparing, this was a mistake. I was like, well, the Philadelphia Eagles, let's look at them in comparison to the Panthers, primarily focused on, like, they didn't have a huge passing attack, but they had explosive plays, like, obviously. And the best like rushing attack in the league, right up there with the Baltimore Ravens, and you have a quarterback. Unfortunately, Bryce Young's good. He's a good scrambler, but he is not to that level of a Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson. But anyways, this episode is laid back. So if you guys are tuned into the episode and you want to participate, all you have to do is drop a comment. I'm not going to be as, well, I say that and I'll probably get into this thing, but I'm not going to be as in the weeds looking at the screen or out not looking at the screen like I normally do, because I tend to do that. I tend to just go and go and go. Also, if you guys are out there trying a few new things, I am live streaming vertical, live streaming directly on YouTube. Please subscribe on YouTube. I'll always say it, close to 2.1 thousand, which is wild, 2,100 subscribers. Lots of good things happening out there. So anyways, vertical streaming, maybe I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times a week for like 9 or 10 minutes, at least right now, just to give us a chance to get connected to you guys in a different way. It's for a way for me to try it out. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Been doing that on lunch, so you have that available. And I am adjusting some of the shorts content. I mean, I know you guys probably don't care, but I always tell people what I'm doing. Maybe it'll benefit someone. Short content, short reels primarily have been repost of the content that I produce, but I am trying to pivot and to do like smaller breakdowns and things like that. So coming up, we'll be able to talk about it. But before we can get into the Carolina Panthers too far this evening, and I'm not going to stay on here that long tonight because I'm just not. We have to celebrate one of the coolest things happening in all of sports right now with the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. They are right down the road from us in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Honestly, about an hour, maybe a little more than an hour from where we are. I don't know how many, I mean, at this point, when I first saw it, there was like nobody on this story because I guess like where I sit regionally, I picked it up first. Not like me personally, but like it came through when nobody saw this. And then now everyone saw it and it's like taking off. But good for them, man. Chanticleers feast for free. This is a really cool promotion, if we're being honest. So introducing the CCU kickoff meal deal. Every football game, every fan, always free. So Coastal Carolina Athletics is going to partner with Aramark to allow fans to eat free at Chanticleer football games inside Brooks Stadium. The vice president, blah, 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 announced. Fans are the heartbeat, all that. Ticket purchasing patrons visiting the concession stands will be able to acquire 4 items per visit with a selection of hot dogs, nachos, popcorn, and a fountain drink. So you're limited. You're getting the cheap stuff. Fountain drinks, but hey, that's not cheap. If you go wherever the heck you're going to other venues, popcorn, nachos, hot dogs, stuff that you could live off of if you go to one of these games. So there's no limit on the number of visits in game. Fans have to scan. I guess there's going to be an app that's coming. I'm curious if this is like specific to alumni. I mean, I don't know that you would allow visiting fans to participate, but I don't know. We're going to have to try this out. I am personally going to have to make a trip down here during the football season and see if we can do a review of this entire thing because this is insane. And our oldest son would absolutely tear this thing apart. Like, let's be real. He'd probably have 50 hot dogs, 3 or 4 nachos, popcorn. To be honest, if we brought our toddler, who's 2, he probably would tear up all the popcorn that they have as well. More information on the app is coming later this week. And your specialty food, outside vendors, your Papa John's, your Domino's, your Chick-fil-A sandwiches, all that you still have to pay for, alcoholic beverages. This is a really cool offer. You wonder why, and I mean, I know it's a college or university. You wonder why there aren't more folks I'll get myself back up here. You wonder why more folks aren't trying to do something like that. Primarily when the Carolina Panthers are now increasing ticket prices, which here's the thing about that. I feel like every time, and I am not a PSL owner, so maybe what I say means nothing. I just like, I understand the lack of success, but, and I don't know. I feel like ticket prices across the league from what we've seen are going up everywhere. They are. It's the nature of the business, and it's the nature of any business, and it's the nature of everything that we're seeing right now. It's economics. It's pure natural economics that year over year, the cost from the previous year to this year is gonna increase. Now, the amount of that increase and how substantial it is, I get. Again, I'm not a PSL owner, so I can't say like, yeah, yay or nay, like how this thing sits. But I also understand the frustration. Like, to the flip side of that, if you are running this organization, you have not seen success, you make a decision to, hey, you could kind of ease up a little bit. I know there's still bills to pay, things to do, but you're also bringing in the concerts. You also have Charlotte FC. Maybe you let up a little bit on the Carolina Panthers. I don't know. Or the Carolina Panthers ticket holders. Who knows? Anyways, let me jump back in before I get too far away on some of the conversations here. Daniel Higgins says, do you think the Panthers would take Ashton Genty in the draft? And what is your top 3 to draft? I guess I'll leave that up there. Do I think the Panthers will take him? I mean, I feel like no right now, but I don't want to tell you no. I think if we were stacking priorities and like it's a thing that we'll continue to do and everyone's going to have their opinion, I think before taking a Genty, I think taking a step back, you have Chuba Hubbard, you feel good about him. You brought in Rico Dowdle, who's likely here for 1 year, and you still have Jonathan Brooks sitting in the back. I think Panthers still may draft a running back, as it's been reported there's been top 30 visits for some guys. They're talking to running backs. I think it just comes into play a little bit later. I don't know how much bringing in a Genty would do right now. It's like, how are you going to spread around the touches between the 3 backs? That's not saying he's not a good back and not a game changer. I think if the Panthers had no running backs, or didn't have a Hubbard, didn't have Dowdle, maybe he's more in play at that point. But it feels like if you are going to potentially draft offense, that like you're sitting there at wide receiver, I think. Not a guarantee. When you talk about like the top 3, and I mean, this is going to vary from person to person, at least from like what I'm seeing people talk about. As we talk about wide receiver, Ted McMillan has to be right there at the top. I've seen fluctuation at the tight end position. I do think Tyler Warren should be in consideration. You also have Loveland out of Michigan. And we're kind of talking like at pick number 8, assuming the Panthers stay there. Harold Fannin Jr., that's going to be much further down, so we'll kind of pass on him. There's this continued discussion about tackle, but I just don't see the Panthers, like, when we talk about, again, drafting on need, I don't know that the Panthers could draft offensive line when there's just more needs on defense or at a skill position. Mason Graham, I would put up there. I was listening to, I believe it was the Panthers. I can't remember the name of the show that they have, but they were doing a pre-draft breakdown of the defensive line, talking about Mason Graham and the impact that he can have. And you pair Mason Graham with a Derek Brown, with some of the newer guys that they brought in, I would be a big fan of him. So I think Mason Graham probably, if he's available, sits in my list. I'm hoping some of this just happens and, the Panthers aren't stuck with a too tough decision, although we'll see. And then, of course, like once we start talking about edge, linebacker, you start talking about Pierce Jr., Mike Green, Michael Williams, and then, of course, Jalen Walker. Those are like the big names. Interchange any of those. I was joking on another podcast that like a video I was recording that I'm so tired of hearing references to it's not as bad as it was, but references to dogs under Dan Morgan. And I said, I want to hear anything else about a dog unless the dog that's being referenced is a Georgia Bulldog that the Carolina Panthers are going to draft. So, I mean, for me, I still think Jalen Walker seems to be up there. Jahad Campbell, I just don't know if the Panthers are as sold on him there. Again, assuming that we're talking pick 8. And then I mean, you could always throw. I mean, I guess if we're being realistic, like if Travis Hunter fell, I don't know that he's going to fall. I mean that far. That seems a little bit unrealistic. And Will Johnson, of course, a cornerback in play. And at the safety position, I know Emanwari, South Carolina Gamecocks, Malachi Starks that I've talked about. You got Xavier Watts in the mix out of Notre Dame. Quite a few guys. I don't know. It all comes down. I just did a video on like where the Panthers have the most need. They're trying to set themselves up. Like, to be honest, I really would be hopeful that the Panthers figure out how to address the safety position with a little more depth pre-draft. I know they brought in a couple guys. At this point, doesn't sound like anything's like panned out. So I'm not really holding my breath there. I know there's work to be done and there's a limited amount of money that's available. So that's my breakdown. What's up, man? Kitty Lit said, or at least spend some of that money to pay some of the bonuses to get guys in. Hey, it's true, though. It's true, man. And that is one of the things that they've talked about with some of the bonuses that they did award some of the guys is being able to pay them for their production. Kitty Lit said, and I should say Alex, Kitty Lit, same thing. Graham is number one player in the draft for him. I love it, man. Also, I don't know if your ears are burning. I've been referencing when people talk, listen, quite a bit. I don't know if I did it in this particular episode, but on a few things I recorded off air that haven't gone live yet. So when people talk, listen, man, carrying that one through. But really, as I guess I kind of get back on track, but y'all can always jump in whenever. I wanted to sit here. Part of this episode, again, I don't have material for it. It was more just like a conversation with myself, at least at this point. And through the chat, if you guys want to chime in, is understanding or thinking through what your expectations are for the Panthers heading into next year. And to be honest, I'm going to look up the win total because I think I've looked at it a few places. I don't know if it's officially published, not at least where I'm looking at right now, but I feel like I've saw 6.5 the other day, and now I feel like I'm a little bit crazy, but I think I did see 6.5. I'm gonna see if we can find the odds, unless someone has it. ESPN has theirs, I think. Yep, Carolina Panthers on ESPN right now, 6.5. So the New Orleans Saints, I guess I could share this too and make it a little bit easier. I'll share it on there. Let's try this. So we got it good. All right, cool. Only having one screen, it's hard to bounce back and forth, but we make it work. So Carolina Panthers currently sitting at 6.5. You have the New Orleans Saints let's say right behind them, right with them at 6.5. The Cleveland Browns at 4.5, and Cleveland Browns are going to be making their way down to Charlotte for joint practice as that was announced. New York Jets, it's weird the way this is kind of stacked up, but New York Jets at 5.5. I don't understand why Jacksonville, again, I'm not a betting person either, but Jacksonville 7.5, Giants 5.5, Titans 5.5. So only a few teams worse than the Carolina Panthers as it is today. So I guess if we take this right now, the 6.5 line, I'd be curious to know what you guys think about expectations for the Panthers heading into next season. When I think about 6.5 wins, or I should rephrase this, and this was part of the reason that I was like coming into this episode. I'd love to tell you, and I'd love for us to be in the mindset that this, maybe I should say could or should be or might be a playoff team, but I don't know how confident I feel right now. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I know part of it's like going through this now, year 3, and doing all this stuff and getting burned not multiple times. I didn't get burned last year. Last year was pretty realistic for how things planned out. But going into it now in the 3rd year of doing this, I don't know. Like, there's just something in the back of my mind that's like, this thing, like, technically we should talk about the Panthers being able to get over the hump, but I don't know how confident I feel in that looking out into next season. And this is probably going to be worth an episode where we bring some folks on to talk about it, because it's been way too long since I've had some folks join into this. But I don't know. Sitting at 6.5, and let's go out, because even though it's public, it's been out there for forever. Let's look at the Panthers opponents one more time. See if we can find our 7 if we take the over right now. Let's flip. Actually, let's do this. So actually, let's use this really nice graphic to make it easier. So Tampa Bay has had the Carolina Panthers number. They just have one of the few teams that, not few teams, one of the teams we just continue to struggle against. Are the Panthers finally able to sneak out one? Possibly. Let's say there's a sweep here. Panthers are 0-2. I feel confident in the Panthers being able to split with the Falcons and the Saints. So you're looking at 2 wins. Again, this is way too early breakdown of where I think the Panthers are going to sit heading into next season. So we're talking a 2-4 football team and a 2-4 record within the NFC South. You have the NFC West, Seattle Seahawks, Rams. Those games are at home. You travel to Arizona and San Francisco. It does feel like Arizona seems to be a winnable game. It always competitive, but at least for the most part, we've been able to take care of business. We took care of business last year. So that would get you to 3 wins. I think the Rams, I haven't really looked at like what they've done this year. If we're being honest, this is just like at spur of the moment decided to do this. So Rams difficult. So a loss. So that's 3 wins. Seattle is at home. Who knows how they're going to be. Lots of change there. I don't know. Possibly let's give ourselves, maybe we go 500 here. So either pick Arizona, possibly San Francisco, giving that San Francisco is kind of fallen off a little bit, but due for a rebound. Lots of changes on their side too. So we'll split. So you've got 2 wins here, 2 wins out of the NFC South. So that would put you at 4 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games to go. Now the fun happens. In reality, when you start looking at AFC East, Patriots, Jets, and the Dolphins should all be winnable. I think Buffalo, again, they're playing here, but Buffalo travels so well too. Their fan base is ridiculous. I think if you split out of this, that's another 2 wins. And you take your pick, the Jets, although the Jets could be better than we expect, but I'll put the Jets there. and the ability to take down Drake May, hopefully. TBD, though. Tough situation. We'll find out. Feel like they're going to be improved. Maybe if you want to exchange the Jets with the Dolphins. So you split, that's 2. So Panthers will be at 6 wins, splitting across what we've broken down. Cowboys, I mean, the last 2 years we played them, not good at all. But maybe this, I mean, of course, going to come in, take over the stadium again. Ridiculous, but is what it is. Are we able to finally get over the hump? Possibly. Jacksonville and Green Bay. So it's not the easiest draw out of your 3 additional games based off of where you finished within the division. As much as I liked finishing ahead of the Saints, maybe it wouldn't have been bad to finish last. But I'll still take 3rd place. Getting to your 7 is the Panthers sit at 6.5, trying to get to 7. I do think there's a chance they could take down either Jacksonville or Dallas. So that would put you right at 7 wins, which, I mean, not going to put you in the playoffs. At 7-10, you would be surpassing expectations at 6.5. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. This is part of the reason, again, that I wanted to put this together, is to think through, if we head into next year with where we are today, like, what is a realistic view on where the Panthers sit? You could, we sat here and said 7 wins out of the group that we looked at. If the Panthers are able to beat the Saints twice, that is a possibility. Or the Falcons, pick one of the 2, and then knock off Tampa one time, you're now talking about a 9-8 football team that is possibly on the cusp of making the playoffs. It's hard to know, man. It varies from year to year to know whether 9-8 is going to do it, 10-7. If the division's going to just open up, you can back in with 9 wins, or if you're going to have a chance at a wild card spot. But it's a tough sled. But I do think it's some pretty favorable games for the Panthers. And again, when you play in the NFC South, at least as it is today, you have to have a little bit of confidence to feel like, hey, if we can take care of business in the South, finish 4-2, you're putting yourself in a good position to be able to hopefully get into the playoff conversation. So catching up here, Chef85 said, Graham, Walker, Starks, and Imanwari are my picks in that order. Even still, if Graham is gone at 8, trading down makes the most sense. Ask yourself, if Walker the best edge defender in the draft? Yep. If not, sorry, I got your last one. If not, you don't take him at 8. Agreed. Really good point. I do think the trade back scenario continues to be the other win-win-ish. I mean, a lot of it just has to do with the gap that the Carolina Panthers have right now from where they sit from pick 8 all the way back to pick 57. So anyways, folks, I got to go cut some videos up and finish the night. So going to get off here because it's probably going to take me a little bit longer to get all that stuff. Appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, it's Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.